everyone, it's Lindsay from My Crafty Plans. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am back in front of the camera to talk about my goals with you. So if you don't know, I have been using the MakseLife system for goal setting and specifically the quarterly companion notebooks all this year, and I have just absolutely been loving this. I think it's a phenomenal goal setting system. It has brought so much just like focus and joy to my planning system this year, honestly, and I am so happy with it. It's going really well. Even when it's not going super well, it's going really well, and that makes me feel really good about what I picked as my planner lineup for this year. If you want to see my annual goal setting process, I do have a video on that. I will link it in the description below and try and put it in the cards as well. I film goal setting videos each month as well as I go in, plus you see my MakseLife all the time on my Instagram and from time to time on my YouTube channel and my functional plan with me's as well. But so for today and for the month of April, I decided to do things a little bit differently, and that's because April marks the start of the second quarter, which means I finished the first quarter and I finished my first quarterly companion notebook. So I started with this gray one that said just begin, and now this is 100% complete. So I just completed the quarterly review process, and now I am here to share that process with you. So in today's video, we're going to be diving into my reflections, both for the month of March, but also for the quarter as a whole. There's a little reflection section of your companion notebook at the end of every single month, but then there's a larger reflection section at the end of the quarter. When you reach the end of your companion notebook, you're supposed to retake the compass assessment, which I've done. And I also, in addition to taking the compass assessment again, I did complete a goals inventory. So a goals inventory basically just means I went through each of my annual goals line by line, word by word, and just reflected on them. I thought about what was working, what wasn't working, what no longer made sense, what I wanted to put on pause, what I really wanted to focus on for both the month of April and for Q2. I found this to be a tremendously helpful process, and I'm going to show you that full process and talk through how I did it in just a few minutes. But first, I thought I would start with my March reflections. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how things went in March. Then I'm going to switch it to the tabletop view so that you can see my actual quarterly reflections process, where I retake the compass assessment, mark up the quarterly pages, make some notes on what's going well, what's not going well, and also talk through the process that I used to do my goals inventory. Then I'm going to flip back to the face front and I'm going to share some of my full quarterly reflections with you to wrap up this video today. And then my next video up on YouTube after this will be a part 2 of this series, and in that video I will do my regular goal setting process for the month. So I will set up all of my monthly pre-planning spreads and as well create my goals for April. I've actually already filmed all of that. This is the last part that I'm filming, even though the videos are going to go up in this more reflective than goal setting order. I've completed the entire process, so I feel really good about talking about it with you and sharing it with you. I just wanted to get it all done before I came on here to do my reflections. So I can't wait to share my April goals with you. It was so tremendously helpful to have all of the quarterly reflections while I was setting my April goals, and I really focused on my reflections while I was setting my April goals, and that's making me feel really great about the month of April. We have some really exciting stuff coming up in the month of April, so I am just looking forward to a really awesome month. So with that being said, now I'm going to switch gears and look a little bit backwards and talk about the month of March. So March was very much a split month, and the overall, I usually start by sharing my overall score for the month. This month I gave myself a 7 again, same as in February, but for completely different reasons. Whereas in February, I felt like the whole month went really well until the very end, when we just had something kind of bad happen and I was like not able to bounce back super quickly from that. The month of March was just like completely split between super high highs and really low lows. I just feel like I was almost two completely different people over the course of the month and just bounced between the two of them. There was like nothing in between. So overall, I got a lot done. I had a lot of really great days, and there are some categories of my goals and some categories of my life that I'm just feeling really positive about. On the other hand, I had a lot of really stressful things happen over the month, and I did not handle stress well at all, and it just kind of sent me into like a little bit of a anxiety spiral, stress spiral, whatever you want to call it, and I just don't feel like I did a good job managing the bad days. It's not even that I had the bad days or I had bad things happen. That is not what's weighing heavily on my mind as far as like bringing down my score down. Stress happens, life happens, things come up, things have to change. You can't be mad at that happening. It's just part of life. But personally, I just don't feel like I handled that as well as I usually do this month. I just feel like I was really letting stress bog me down. I was really letting anxiety get to me, and I wasn't bouncing back quickly from that. It was impacting my interactions with my kids. It was impacting my interactions with other family members, friends, everything. And I just feel like I let those bad moments take over way more of my life than I typically do. And I just think that some of this had been building, it's obviously really stressful times. We've had kind of a stressful year. I'm sure a lot of other people have. And I just think that I just had like a little bit of a moment of, just where I just hit my boiling point and I just couldn't take anymore. And so I want to spend a little bit more time in the month and the months ahead focusing on how I personally manage stressors in my life and just try and be a little bit more productive and thoughtful about how I'm interacting with people and how I'm handling and managing the stress levels in my life. So my biggest wins for the month of March were actually all in the fun category. One, I feel like my annual goal of scheduled fun is going so well right now. So one of my big goals and my big focuses for the year is being more proactive with scheduling our time on our weekends, setting up more activities, more play dates, more everything with the kids, just, so that we're not so reliant on just running over to a grandparent's house or just staying at home with the kids all weekend. And this was really hard to do when it's cold outside because we do a lot of outside activities, but I feel like for the first 3 months of this year, I've done such a good job of proactively setting things up, of scheduling activities, of, getting the museum tickets, of making sure we have plans for the weekend, setting up that play date, and I am feeling so good about that, and I think that that was a huge victory. We had really fun weekends this month. But in addition to that, what I'm most proud of is the fact that that's actually starting to feel like a real habit. Like I don't need to specifically write down in my planner to make weekend plans. I don't need to specifically schedule in a calendar session to make weekend plans. I'm doing it more proactively, more naturally. I'm setting things up a couple weeks in advance. I'm making sure we have enough activities, and it's really starting to feel like a habit, and that feels so good. So that was my first biggest win for the month. The second one, which is also in the fun category, is we finalized our vacation plans for our family vacation. We are taking that trip in April, and I am so excited. We have not been on vacation in a really long time, and this is our first trip with like just our family of 5, because last time we went away, my youngest wasn't even born yet. She is a little bit of a COVID baby. She was born right at the end of February 2020. So she's never even been on an airplane. So I'm really excited for this vacation, and there's a lot of logistical things that I'm still having to manage in the first half of April for that. So you'll see that in my goals for sure for the month of April. But that was my other big win. We committed to the vacation. We booked everything. We got the flights booked, the hotel, everything. And now in the month of April, we get to reap the fruits of those rewards and just hopefully have a really fantastic family trip. That's also what I'm looking forward to the most in the month of April. Obviously, it feels like it's been a really long time coming, and I'm just honestly so excited for vacation. So I already kind of said this, but things that are going really well for me right now, working in my life, are just the proactive scheduling. In addition to scheduling all that weekend fun, I've actually been really on top of scheduling doctor's appointments, home repairs, maintenance, all that kind of stuff that I had as one of my main focus areas for this year, all of those kind of calendar sessions, and that has been working really well in our life. I just feel very organized in that regard, managing everyone's various appointments and stuff, and I have really feel like that was working especially well last month, and it's starting to really feel like a habit, which again is super nice, not just on the fun pieces, but on the parts that you have to do. The other thing that's working really well, as I already mentioned, is our weekend fun. We had a lot of fun this month over the weekends, a lot of different kinds of activities, museum visits, birthday parties, play dates, playground when we could, just lots of different fun activities. So the next question is what's not working well, and I think you can probably guess since I spoke about it at length when I gave my number, but just my stress level and more specifically how I'm reacting to stressors in my life is not working really well right now, and my Q2 focus is really going to be on creating some new release valves for stress and how I manage my interactions with people when I'm under stress, and just really trying to focus on that to kind of bring down my anxiety levels and bring down my stress levels a bit in my life. So in terms of what I'm most grateful for this month, beyond like family and friends and all of those good things, I really have been so grateful for outside time on the days where it's warm. I've been trying to get outside more as it gets a little bit warmer. We've had some kind of ups and downs with weather, but when I am able to be outside, I am really grateful for that. And then the number one thing is I'm so grateful for our upcoming vacation. Fingers crossed that everything goes smoothly, but I'm just really, really looking forward to it. There are some other specific questions in here. I'm not going to answer them because I feel like read them specifically and answer them, because I feel like through this entire little speech, I've answered all of them. You kind of get a good picture of what happened in my month of March. In terms of my actual March goals, I did really well with my goals this month. Again, there were a couple of things that I pushed off, specifically around like some of the more creative pursuits where I just had to kind of pause with those. I had a pretty busy month with work, and I just didn't really feel like I had the energy to devote towards like painting or doing another traveler's notebook setup or anything like that. And you know what? I'm really okay with that. There was one specific goal around something we had planned for the kids where my husband and I just decided we weren't ready, they weren't ready, and we're actually going to be pausing that goal, and we will either evaluate it later in the year or just eliminate it altogether. And that was around like establishing an allowance system, which was one of my annual goals, and it's one of my annual goals that from this review process, we've just decided to pause for now. We can revisit it at the end of the year or potentially just punt it to another year. We just don't feel ready for a family to take that on. Other than those few things that I've decided to put off, or one or two things that I just didn't get to over the month, I have a lot of check marks in my March goals. And honestly, I have a lot of check marks in my February and January goals. I do feel like I'm making really good progress on my monthly goals and on my annual goals. But if I have so many check marks, why don't I feel better about the month? And that is why I really wanted to complete this quarterly review process. I just felt like I needed to reconnect to my annual goals. I was focused very much on my monthly goals and what I had written down, and that's what you're supposed to do. But I think I was ready for a more thorough check-in with my annual goals, a more thorough check-in with how I was feeling about life in general, in order to set up my April goals and to focus on Q2 and what energies I kind of want to be bringing towards my life in Q2, and what's still serving me, what's no longer serving me, and all of that stuff. So with that in mind, I went through this whole quarterly goal review process, which I'm now going to share with you. So I'm going to flip it over to the tabletop view, and I'm going to do a voiceover talk through of how I went through the quarterly review process.
End of each quarter, you're supposed to retake the compass assessment, and there's a place to put your score in the quarterly notebook, but the actual assessment is only in the annual notebook. So I just printed a new copy. They have this available for free on their website, and this time I actually decided to take it while looking at my scores from the beginning of the year. When I took it at the beginning of the year, I took it a bunch of times and then just kind of like averaged and thought through it and tried to make thoughtful answers for each of the numbers. This is totally subjective. Obviously, you're rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. But for this time, what I decided to do was to take it while looking at my scores from the beginning of the year, think about how things had changed in each of the questions or in each of the categories, and just kind of like adjust my score up or down based on the way I initially scored myself. That way I wasn't like working off a completely different scale, because I do think like if you're in a good mood, you rate yourself higher. If you're in a bad mood, you rate yourself lower. And I wanted to try and make it like compared to the beginning of the year, this is how I felt right now, this is how I feel right now, but also like kind of thinking about it as this is how I felt the past couple of months. These are the areas where I feel like I've worked to make things better, or these are the areas I more feel like I was struggling a little bit. And I have some of both types of those areas, and overall my scores stayed like mostly the same, fairly in line. I had a couple of categories where things went up and a couple of categories where things went down, which you'll see in a minute, but I really just tried to think of it as like compared to the beginning of the year what do I feel like I'm doing better? What do I feel like I'm doing worse, rather than starting completely from scratch with the numbers? Because I think it's more meaningful this way. Obviously, however you want to do it is totally fine. I love the quarterly assessment. I think it's really great for reflecting. I wasn't as enamored with it this time as I was in the beginning of the year, because I've already spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I already feel like I had a pretty good idea of where I wanted to kind of move on to for next quarter, things I wanted to focus on, things I wanted to reframe. And I didn't feel like I necessarily needed to take the assessment again. My results from the assessment definitely support, for the most part, what I was thinking anyways, though. Basically, then it tells you to put in your scores from last time and this time, and then tells you to rate, overall, are you doing the same, better, or worse? And I didn't want to give myself one better or worse, because some areas I'm doing way better, and some areas things have not been going so well. So I wanted to just make it more of a sliding scale. So I gave myself green for areas that were doing better, a red for areas that were doing worse, and then I left the more neutral ones blank. And I used the scores, but I also used some subjective feelings. There were a couple of categories where things moved small, and sometimes I felt like that was stayed the same, and sometimes I felt like that was an improvement or not an improvement. So I just kind of made it a little based on the numbers and a little bit subjective. And I'm just replotting this on the graph, same as I did in the beginning of the year, except I just did it in pen this time instead of with the marker. I just kind of wanted to do it fast. It gets a little bit messy though, because I kind of messed up where things go, and so I decided to color it in. And then in a moment of inspiration, which I absolutely love, I decided to mark down the areas that I wanted to focus on for next time, for next quarter. But then I took it a step further, and I just put them as one word to sum up what I wanted to go for next quarter. So for fun, it was enjoy. I flagged a few areas as focus, a few as continue, one as pause, and one as reframe. Actually, that was 2 as reframe. And then what I'm going to do here is go through each of my annual goals with those words that I had put on the previous page in mind, and with my thoughts from the first quarter in mind, and just take a goals inventory. I saw this on a post on MakseLife's Instagram, where Sierra, who's the founder of MakseLife, posted about how to do a goals inventory, and I just thought that was a really great idea. And I just wanted to do a more in-depth reflection for the full quarter, and just do a little inventory around my annual goals. I'm not going to change anything in my annual goals notebook for now, but I just went through all of them. I made some notes about what was going well, what wasn't going well, goals that I wanted to pause or cancel or circle back to, and goals that I wanted to focus on, or things that needed to be adjusted, tweaked, and I just did that in every single category. This was a really great way to check back in with my annual goals and really reconnect with them, which I feel like after completing 3 months, I was a little bit focused on building things from month to month, and spending less time going back to my sort of overarching big picture thoughts. So this was a really good way to reconnect with that, and I'm really happy that I did this. I will definitely be doing this again every quarter. I just think it's really, really useful practice. And sometimes it's okay to let a goal go, or to pause it, or to focus on something else, to shift, to change. Your life changes, and you should change with it. And that's one of the things that I love about the MakseLife system. Then I also love that this is going to be in my Q1 companion notebook. So when I go to set my April goals in part 2 of this video, which I've already done now, I actually keep my annual goals open, my Q1 refresh page open that I'm writing right now, and I look at both of those while I'm writing my April goals, and I found that so helpful and so amazing. It was just a really great way to make sure that I was focusing on what I really wanted to achieve in Q2, and starting the quarter out strong, and also just making sure that I was keeping in mind all of those thoughts that I spent so much time thinking about and writing down, and making sure that got translated into my goals for April. So you can stay tuned for that. It'll be my next video up on my YouTube channel, and I'm excited to share that with you as well. But I really loved this quarterly review process. I thought it was so helpful. And again, you don't need a formal process, but sometimes it is just good to check back in and make sure things that you thought at the beginning of the year still make sense, life evolves, life changes, and it was really just good to check back in with everything, literally line by line, say, is this still serving me? Does it need to be adjusted? Do I want to focus on this? Is it okay to pause this? And just really kind of shape up what I want the next month and also the next quarter to look like based on how things are going now and based on what I wanted at the beginning of the year, and then thinking through how those two things can meet in the middle, whether they still make sense, and just, overall serving like the higher purpose of the year rather than getting too bogged down in like the individual weeds of the day-to-day, month-to-month, week-to-week kind of goal setting. I had a little bit of extra space at the bottom, so I just wrote a Q2 mission statement out, and the basic gist of that is to just enjoy the fun times and better manage my stress.
Okay, so now that you've seen my quarterly review process that I went through and that I will hopefully continue at the end of each quarter since I think it was so helpful, I thought I would share a few highlights from the results. So in addition to retaking the compass assessment, there is space for you to reflect on a couple different questions. And like I said in the voiceover, I didn't want to give myself just better or worse. I felt like some areas were going better and some areas were going worse and some were staying the same. So in terms of going much better, I had marked my personal category and the fun and recreation, and particularly the fun and recreation has been a really strong category for me this year. And that's phenomenal because that was my lowest scored category at the beginning of the year. And I was just really feeling like that needed to be a focus area for Q1. So it is great that I chose that as a focus area and brought that to life. And in terms of what helped me the most with that, again, it was just proactive scheduling. I feel really committed to that as a lifestyle at this point, and I'm feeling really, really great about how that went. I'm definitely going to be continuing to do that, but I don't feel like I need to make any changes there or any additions. I feel like it's just like, keep doing what you're doing awesome. The personal category was another area where I saw another improvement, although this one was much more modest. And the reason for that is I have some parts of the personal area that are going really, really well, and some parts that haven't really been as much of a focus, and that's totally fine. Overall, I'm feeling really good about that area. There's a couple of things that I want to focus in on, things that I've let slide, especially in the past month, like pre-planning my weeks on the Friday before, that I'd really like to reconnect to in the month of April. But in general, I'm feeling just really great about the proactive scheduling, not just for the fun things, but for all areas of my life. So the three areas where I had marked myself as worse scores than the last time I took the compass assessment at the end of last year were family and relationships, health and wellness, and spirituals and personal growth. And honestly, all three of those, it's the same thing that's being impacted. It's just the way I'm handling stress and my overall stress levels. So for the quarter ahead, I will definitely be focusing on positive interactions and de-stressors in my life in order to bring back those scores up. It's one thing that's impacting all of them, and I think that it's going to feel really, really great if I can just get some new methods for coping with stress. And really, I want to just focus on positive interactions, especially with the kids, like trying to let frustration slide more easily and really focus on that for Q2. And I think that those scores will be able to bounce back up nicely as long as I keep that in mind. So my other categories all felt roughly the same, and honestly, in each of the categories I had certain questions that were going better than certain questions where things improved and certain questions where things didn't improve or disproved, whatever you want to just call it, and certain things where they stayed the same. But overall, like I said, I'm feeling really, really great about especially the fun and recreation category, and I'm ready to shift my main focus on to a couple other areas in my life, and particularly on managing stress for the quarter ahead. So the next question down here on the reflections page just says for you to use 3 words to describe how you felt over the past 90 days. 1, I put scheduled, 2, organized, and the other one I put swingy. And what I meant by that is just, like I said, I've been feeling like there's been a lot of really high highs and a lot of really low lows lately, and I would like to just kind of try and work to even that out a little bit and even out how I react to certain situations. So some other highlights from my review process. I'm not going to read this word by word, and you will see more of this when I get into my actual April goal planning. But basically, I just want to like congratulate myself on how well I've done with the scheduling. It's made a tremendous impact in not only my life, but in also the kids' lives and my husband's. I just feel like we're doing really well with this. We're on top of what we need to be on top of. We're also just having a lot of fun, and that's been really, really nice. Then what I need to focus on now is how I better handle the day to day. We're going to work on our routine building, especially with the kids. Kids are just creatures that crave routines, and you know what? So am I. So we are going to work a lot on our routine building and just managing stress levels over the next couple of months. So overall, I am feeling really great about how the first quarter went, especially going through this reflection process and looking back on it. But I am focused on bringing even more joy and making things even better in Q2, because that's the whole point of this. So really what I want to focus on in Q2 is, again, working on these de-stressors, working on our day-to-day habits and building up new routines into our lives while maintaining the things that are going well. And I think that that's the real challenge, because I don't want to let go of the progress that I made in Q1. I don't want to let go of our fun weekends, but I do want to make space to add in and focus on other things. So you're going to see some changes in my April goals, in my areas of focus, and coming in my functional planner as well as I adjust to all of these things. But I am still hoping to maintain the habits that I established in the first quarter of the year, and that is basically how this whole thing is going to work. Each quarter, each month, each week, you're adding to what you do as things start to feel like real solid habits where you don't have to spend so much time and energy focusing on them. You can kind of keep those in the back of your mind. You maintain what you're doing there, but you don't have to think so actively about it, and that frees up space to take on new pieces of your annual goals and new pieces of your life that you want to tackle. So I'm really looking forward to some new focus areas for Q2 while maintaining my commitment to a really fun year. Okay, so that is everything for my quarterly review process and my March reflections. I hope you enjoyed getting to see this, to chat with me face front, and stay tuned because my next video will actually be my April goal setting video. So if you like this video, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Please like it. Let me know something you're looking forward to in the month of April in the comments down below as well. And stay tuned to everything going on in my channel, and also check in with me on Instagram at MyCraftyPlans. I will talk to you all soon. Bye!